Right, welcome back. This session is about Databricks, and this is going to be about data enthusiasts, folks who want to get started with Databricks. Now, this is an introduction to my playlist, Azure Databricks. If you can come over Azure Devops with Chan channel, you find a playlist called Azure Databricks. It gets started with all the free videos and which are gonna help you with your Databricks, Azure Databricks for that matter, learning. Before getting into the playlist, Databricks is a platform, is an open source platform wherein you can get started with your ETL or ELT journey, and wherein you have got multiple data sources. You want to read that data, churn that out data into something meaningful and present it to your customers. So all the data oriented source and then churning out happens on a platform called Databricks. Now there are multiple other platforms, but in this session I'm going to talking about Databricks. Now Databricks is an independent company which is now started by the founders of Spark. So it's a well battle tested platform wherein multi-organization, many enterprise level organization are coming into it and getting started with your Databricks journey. So Databricks can run individually, but Azure and Databricks is kind of conglomerated, and there's something called as Azure Databricks. Now that's the introduction. Now this is the UI which helps you to get started with Databricks. What's going to happen is you can run Databricks on Azure, comes out of box. You don't have to care about any installation or maintaining your Spark or Apache clusters. You don't have to worry about high availability, integration with S3 bucket or integration with any sort of storage accounts. That's already been taken care. So you can run your ETL jobs, you can present some beautiful graphs or whatever is deemed appropriate. You can turn your big data into something more meaningful. You get a high performance data warehouse as well. So now these are few of the capabilities of Azure Databricks. It comes with an optimized Spark engine, runs on a Spark. You get to choose your own language. Now if you want to work on write Python, Scala, R, SQL queries on top of your Databricks, you could do that. It's production ready. It has got a highly interactive workspace, which means you can run and collaborate on top of these notebooks with other folks in your organization as well. So you could, multiple people can work on the same notebook, which means it's pretty similar to something called as Google Doc or something wherein multiple people can collaborate and you can see what changes they are making. So that's about the collaborated notebook. And then it has a native integration with Azure services because it's Azure Databricks, and you get seamless collaboration with storage account, machine learning models, Power BI, Data Factory, and a lot of other Azure services. Comes with the enterprise grade security as well. Now let's move on to the playlist. Now this is the playlist where in the first video I'm gonna get started with what big data is. Then I'm going to move on to what Azure Databricks. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Spark internals and the architecture. So that's going to be about the third video. And in the fourth one, we're going to talk about the overview of Azure Databricks. Then we're going to get started with deploying our Azure Databricks workspace. You've already got a cluster. You don't have to deploy any clusters. On top of it, you can start creating your workspace, and underneath each workspace you would have multiple notebooks and all of that. So you on the fifth one, this one, we've got the notebooks and initialization command, which you're going to see in the demo. And then you gonna learn Azure Databricks automation using Terraform as well. So for the DevOps enthusiast, infrastructure enthusiasts, you can get started with this one, how to manage your Azure Databricks using Terraform. We're gonna run our first Spark query into the Azure Databricks notebook. So this is about it. We would see magics and tricks, tips and tricks when and how you can get started with your commands, magic commands into Azure Databricks notebook. We're gonna run a few of the global Linux scripts also. Let's suppose you want to make sure that in your notebook there are few Python libraries or Java libraries which has to be installed from the very beginning, and you could achieve it using global inet script. Then in order to save all of the data, all of the work you've been doing, you need some sort of Azure blobs. So we're going to see how you can mount an Azure blob, just a storage account which you can mount into your notebook, and whatever you're doing gonna saved into your storage account, which means even if you close the notebook, even if you delete the notebook, all of your works are getting saved over here. In the next session, we're going to understand about how to read and write data frames into into Azure Databricks. So there's a lot of functions which we're going to use, and then we're going to read data using external sources. Now it could be S3 bucket, could be Elasticsearch, Elastic clusters, could be anything. And in this one, we're going to learn about reading data from an external channel. Now this is, I've like condensed down a few of the important bits and pieces into this 13 odd module playlist. Now if you are looking for a full-fledged course, you can go back to Azure Databricks, Infrasity, where I've curated the course. It's a 5-hour course wherein I get started with the Databricks internals. I talk about how to manage the secret management, and then I talk about secret management, and then I talk about logging into Azure Databricks. Then I speak a bit about how to do CI/CD using Azure using Azure Devops. Now, if you don't want all of them, you can still stick to the free playlist over here and get started with your Azure Databricks journey. I hope this was super informative. I can't wait enough to see you in the session. I'll see you in a while. Thank you.